I was actually, or I've been, should I say shaking, listening to all the views and all the things that have been said concerning this exercise. I was actually hoping that Dr. Shribo would have spoken to try and let us attempt to offer an explanation as to why they, 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 they have chosen the route that they have. Because like you have said, in line with what has been accepted, if you take Article 45, I'll rather start from 42, which is the Ten Hadi emphasized it, that every citizen of Ghana above 18 of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered. And so the registration exercise, which is in line with Article 45, I think A, to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. And so obviously read in consonance with the LI, it seems to give the EC the discretion. But discretion, as we know, once it's given by law, cannot be exercised capriciously or arbitrarily without taking into consideration the interest of those that are entitled to benefit from the exercise of that discretion.
In fact, in Tenade, the court said the EC should desist from arbitrary, unreasonable, inflexible registration procedures that disenfranchise eligible voters.
Exactly the point I was driving at.
And so it should be inclusive rather than exclusive.
If you look at Article 23, and then if you look at Article 296, it states there very clearly that once you have that discretion to exercise any power vested in you in this context by virtue of Article 45, it should not be done in a manner that would be capricious or will not be beneficial to those that are entitled to, or that are intended to benefit from the exercise of that discretion of that authority. Now, from all the evidence that we have before us, it seems that this may be the first time, at least in recent memory, that the Electoral Commission has decided to restrict the voter registration exercise to very, very few centers. I do not know why that they are doing that.
They've used this before, except you said recent memory. So you go, the EC boss is EC Director of Elections is here. He will help us with some explanation to that.
Yeah, in recent memory, in the sense that in 2016, I don't think that they used, because you read the statement by them. So if we are supposed to be progressive, and then in 2016, we open up the centers with the view of making it more accessible, because civil society and people had complained the manner in which people end up being disenfranchised because they did not have the opportunity to register due to all the limits that come with it. Then it seems to defy all reason and all the efforts and all the gains we have made in such attempts, or in an attempt to bring the democracy to the doorstep of those that are entitled to participate in that process by limiting it. Like perhaps maybe the EC has reasons. That is why I'm saying that I'm here to hear, which may in the long term allay all the fears. Because as it stands now, tensions are very high, because this is a very critical election. Both parties, or two major parties, and all the parties that are interested would want to be sure that their supporters are not disenfranchised. Now, what I was thinking of throughout this process is the role of, is it IPAC they call it? Whether or not the Electoral Commission discussed this process thoroughly with the members of the IPAC.
So they report that it was discussed, but it was not conclusive, and that the EC had told them that it will hear from them. The next thing they heard was the announcement and advertisement.
So that was what I was going to, that if the EC wants the IPAC not to be just a mere rubber stamp, but is supposed to gather or garner consensus on some of these very sensitive and essential democratic exercise, then they should be respecting the views, legitimate views of members of that IPAC. Because if these views were handled, or these things were handled at that level, the EC addressed the concerns that were raised by, because the persons that have sued the EC are members of the IPAC, or supposed to be members of the IPAC. I'm not sure if the NDC has gone back to join or participate. But if these things were addressed at that level and what was rolled out satisfied all these concerns, we will not have this hula baloo about this exercise, which will now affect the credibility of the Electoral Commission. And as we are seeing, even the credibility of the officers of the Electoral Commission comparing to what they have said in the past. And it doesn't augur well at all for our democratic dispensation.
Okay, so